Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are mapping out the incredibly layered anatomy of gaming magic. We're going to trace the entire life cycle of a memorable gaming moment. We're starting right at the developer's desk, where the core psychology and world building are literally coded into existence. And we're following that all the way through to the content creator's editing bay, where that raw gameplay is captured, scripted, and polished into a viral masterpiece. It's a journey from code to content, and we are going to break the whole shebang down for you. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. We'll start with designing unforgettable gameplay, move into cinematics and audio immersion, pivot over to the creator side for scripting and capturing content, and finally, we'll cover polishing the final edit. Part 1. Designing unforgettable gameplay. So the crucial point is that before a game looks or sounds good, it absolutely has to hook the players psychologically. Behavioral designer Yukai Chao hits the nail on the head here. He says, a boss fight is the moment the game asks the player, everything you've learned, prove it now. Unforgettable games don't just throw random enemies your way. They actually test your accumulated skills through rehearsed hardship. A boss isn't just a big enemy, right? It's literally a final exam for everything the game has taught you up to that exact moment. 2 links this directly to a behavioral concept known as Core Drive 2, accomplishment. This is the psychological drive triggered by overcoming meaningful difficulty. Think about it. When you finally take down a boss after, 20 attempts, that intense peak of accomplishment is burned into your memory. This carefully designed scarcity of resources paired with the massive adrenaline rush of a high-stakes challenge is exactly why players remember specific boss fights for decades.
But accomplishment isn't only about combat, it's also about exploration. Devs love to reward players who spend hours scouring massive maps, going to absurd lengths just to uncover hidden secrets. Whether it's tracking down King Arthur's mythical Excalibur hidden deep in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, stumbling across a crashed UFO in Fallout 4, parkouring your way to unlock a secret Mario suit in Dying Light, or literally maxing out your stamina just to scale the temple to the secret garden in Shadow of the Colossus, these incredible Easter eggs are tangible rewards for your relentless dedication.
Moving right along to Part 2, cinematics and audio immersion. And this brilliantly illustrates how once the mechanics are in place, devs have to present them compellingly. Game developers are increasingly relying on established film techniques to build atmosphere. A locked-off camera keeps the frame completely still, which is absolutely perfect for building a profound sense of unease and tension. Contrast that with a rack focus, which shifts your attention seamlessly. It's just a subtle change in the lens's focus from one subject to another, guiding your eye exactly where the director wants it without ever needing to cut away. Some modern masterpieces take this cinematic approach to an absolute extreme. The 2018 reboot of God of War is famously utilizing a continuous camera shot with 0 visible cuts from the opening scene to the closing credits. By seamlessly blending the active gameplay and the narrative cutscenes, the game creates this fluid emotional journey that keeps you totally invested without ever breaking your immersion. It's a real game changer. Visuals are just half the battle, though. Building a convincing reality like a medieval soundscape requires highly specific layers of audio. Sound designers are pulling from massive libraries here, everything from the sharp clash of one- and two-handed swords to the heavy, resonant thud of a siege engine like a trebuchet. They layer in dynamic tavern socializing, crowd chatter, and continuous environment loops. It's this deep auditory texture that truly makes a digital world feel alive. So, the developers have successfully built this breathtaking, challenging, immersive world. But that leaves us with a pretty massive question. How do we actually capture this magic? How do we take this meticulously crafted experience and share it effectively with an audience? Which brings us to Part 3, scripting and capturing content. Let's move to and see how this builds at the creator's desk. Editor and writer Alex Raza says a standout video script follows a really simple 4-step formula. First, you have to understand your audience. Are you talking to hardcore lore fanatics or casual gamers? Second, plan a structure that aligns with your ultimate goal. Third, draft the script using clear concepts and relatable examples. And finally, polish the edit. Cut the fluff and keep the word count tightly paced at around 125 to 150 words per minute. To truly master that structure, look at the famous narrative model used by the educational channel Vsauce. You don't just dump facts on people, right? You spend the first 20% on an intriguing hook or a compelling question. Then you spend 30% naturally expanding the topic to show how it connects to wider concepts. That feeds perfectly into a massive 40% deep dive into the core subject, completely packed with examples. Finally, you wrap the whole thing up with 10% dedicated to a concluding philosophical insight that just leaves the audience in awe. Of course, a great script needs great footage. Here is a massive secret from the folks over at Stream Scheme for anyone using software like OBS. Always record your gameplay and your webcam on entirely separate audio and visual tracks. If you burn your webcam footage directly over the top of your gameplay while recording, you are permanently stuck with it. By keeping them separate, your footage stays completely clean, so you can zoom in on the game or your face totally independently during the edit. And that leads us to our fourth and final section, polishing the final edit. You have the script, you have the clean footage. Now you assemble. Gaming editors like Mortimarv use this rapid-fire workflow. First, cut your clips down to the absolute essentials. Next, and this is vital for modern retention, add bold, chunky subtitles. Editors often grab custom fonts from places like defont.com and color code them to match the speaker. Then you key out any green screens. Finally, layer in the sound design, using audio gain and reverb to make those punchlines or jump scares really pop. Now, what's really interesting about this is how much of a difference basic color correction makes. A lot of raw shooter games have this dull, grayish haze to them, but editors use a simple pro-camp effect to bring it to life. By bumping the contrast up to 150, dropping the brightness just a touch, and cranking the saturation way up to 180, that dull haze completely vanishes. It literally turns a raw, washed-out clip into a vibrant, high-contrast masterpiece. To add energy to those newly vibrant clips, editors love to use camera shakes. But as you might know, legacy shake plugins are often incredibly expensive, and frankly, they can crash your software. Enter F-Shake V4. Highlighted by editor Clout VFX, this is a completely free GPU-accelerated Fusion plugin for DaVinci Resolve. The best part? It's entirely lag-free. That means editors get buttery smooth motion blur without their computers grinding to an absolute halt. Shake V4 gives creators massive flexibility with 3 distinct modes. Normal mode gives you those standard X, Y, and Z axis tilts. Then you have twitchy mode, which creates a highly jittery, high-frequency movement. And finally, jumpy mode provides incredibly chaotic, high-intensity action. Editors can just seamlessly switch between these styles to perfectly match the exact energy of whatever action is happening on screen. But for the true pros, you don't just use one shake. The advanced technique here is to actually stack multiple shake nodes on top of each other. By layering them, you can independently control the high-frequency jitter of a punch, the slow amplitude zoom of the camera, and the rotational tilt, all at the exact same time. It allows an editor to build a completely custom, complex animation that feels uniquely organic. And that brings our journey to a close. We've seen how developers psychologically craft bosses and meticulously layer audio to build these unforgettable worlds. And we've seen how creators script, capture, and aggressively edit those worlds to captivate an audience. You now have the exact blueprint. You have the tools to understand how the world is built and the tools to effectively share it. So I leave you with this final provocative thought. What story will you tell next? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I absolutely cannot wait to see what you create.